Well, hi everyone. I'm glad to be here today. Those of you here with me and virtually, it's good to get out. And I thought, why not come to Dallas and experience the wonderful heat here? But it's been cold the last 2 days. I'm not used to winters anymore, and this seems like winter. So this is winter, right? Yeah. Today we're going to continue our discussion of efficient JavaScript. I feel one way that we as FileMaker developers can really use the platform in its entirety is to use every part of it. Every little button at the top in the toolbar, every calculation dialog that we have access to, every kind of feature that is in the platform. And the web viewer itself has been in the platform since FileMaker 8.5. I wasn't around at that point, and I know it was a little bit limited, but really since FileMaker 9, we've been able to do a lot of what we can do today. It's gotten a lot better as FileMaker has increased their versions, and in FileMaker 19, we got the ability really to use the web viewer pretty perfectly. So it's kind of on me, or I've kind of taken this idea to help FileMaker developers realize the full potential of that one little thing, that one little object inside of FileMaker, and that is the web viewer. So we're going to continue our discussion from December. It was a long time ago. In that time, I talked with you all about how we can use JavaScript to solve client problems that can astound them, can delight them, can make their lives easier, can do things that FileMaker can't do. FileMaker cannot very well produce a Kanban board, for example, and we can use the web viewer to do that. So I think FileMaker developers might know that from like some high level that we can really use the web viewer to solve problems. It's just, how do we do it? And that's what our discussion was last month or 2 months ago. I have the idea that we can use efficient tools. We can use tools of the web developer trade to help us work with JavaScript and FileMaker. We don't have to rely on antiquated methods of writing JavaScript in text fields, writing it in layout objects, putting it into global variables. We don't have to do any of that. It's much more efficient for a FileMaker developer to use the web developer tools. And when it comes to deployment, sending the code to FileMaker, we can use what web developers do every day as well, deploy the code to certain places. So we talked a lot about that. I'm not going to take some time to refresh our memories, but I will at the end show us. We'll take a look at a real example of a chart that I put together for us that you can download and start to use. I assume you're on the Wi-Fi, you're gonna need that, because our goal today is to set up our computers to work with JavaScript and FileMaker. So yeah, that's what this is about. There are two ways really to be efficient with working with JavaScript and FileMaker. You can learn JavaScript. You can learn JavaScript libraries. You can learn about how libraries work. You can write the code using the web tool developer tools. You can render it in the web viewer while you're developing, so you're not guessing what it's going to look like, and you can deploy the code. This is an efficient way for us to work with JavaScript. We don't need to learn everything about JavaScript. There is a very small amount of JavaScript that we can use right away to be effective. If we want to, we can learn some JavaScript libraries, which takes a lot of the problems out of our hands, and it just magically works. So this is one method of being efficient with JavaScript. The second method is this way. Hire this guy. So this guy can help you be efficient to solve problems using JavaScript in FileMaker. Let's get our computers set up for working with JavaScript. Feel free to follow along. You can follow along now, or you can do this later. I encourage you to do it now because I'm here to help, and there are Harmonic people here that also know this technologies, and they can maybe step up and help. And also, we're gonna download a widget that I've built for you that you can explore and see how it works. So in order for us to efficiently use JavaScript, we do need to set our computers up to have certain services and processes on it, some apps on it. I have a before begin page that you can go to, and we can follow the steps. And I encourage you to do that here. These steps here will give us the chance to set up our computers to work with. The first thing, of course, we need FileMaker 19 or higher. That shouldn't be a problem in these days. We can't really use these efficient methods in versions less than FileMaker 19, especially 19.3, since that's when Windows removed Internet Explorer as the browser. So if you have that, that's great. We also need VS Code. Can someone put this in the chat? I don't know unless it's easy to get to. But if you follow this step, you can hit the links, and we can download these apps. One of the tools that I use is VS Code. One of the apps I use is VS Code. I use it extensively. I use it every single day, many times a day. I spend more time in here than I do in FileMaker at the moment. But this is a great tool to write our code. I'll just show you an example. This is the one we're going to download in a few minutes. VS Code gives me all of the functionality of a modern tooling for writing code. It color codes things, it indents things automatically for me. It tells me when I have errors. If I forget like in an object, here's an object of options. If I forget a comma, we can very clearly see that there's an error. So VS Code is probably the only way you want to write JavaScript for FileMaker. When I was learning JavaScript, and I was trying to write it in a field, in a FileMaker field. And that was just absolutely the worst way to do it. It took a lot longer. Now, I can see all my mistakes when I'm using VS Code. So if you don't have it, I would recommend you download that. You can do that here, do that now. We are gonna use it in a few minutes, and I want you to experience all the amazingness of using JavaScript. Does everybody have VS Code? Or have it downloaded, or, okay. Does anybody need some time to get it downloaded? You can, yeah, yes. Yeah, so AI is a big, there's actually, okay, so let's get on that topic. I love using AI to help me refine my code and to make it efficient. If I am struggling with a function that does some intense processing, I will use Copilot to help me out. I can show examples of that here. I think it's worth knowing JavaScript before you ask AI to help you write the JavaScript, because it's often going to give you extraneous stuff. It could give you wrong stuff. Although the more I type JavaScript, the more I use JavaScript in FileMaker, the better Copilot's going to get for it. So I would recommend using it, yes. There are other tools out there now. There's a dev tool called Claude that is basically a building. You can tell it, create me a widget, a chart widget using the Apex Charts library, and here's the fields where the data comes from. You could do that. So yes, I would recommend you use it. I use it a lot to clean up my code and to suggest alternative ways to write functions. In VS Code, there's a lot of great extensions that help me with the work that I do. And what I recommend for people is that when they download VS Code, that they look at in the Modern Tools section here, they look at all of the extensions that VS Code provides. And I've got a list of suggested ones that I would recommend to anybody using JavaScript to write a FileMaker widget. There is GitHub Copilot. I use that a lot. It's helpful. And there's just a lot of great tools here for us to use. So if you haven't downloaded these extensions, you can. I would recommend them. Anything that I do would have these. Any code I write has these as sort of support systems. So the code I write, you'll see would have this stuff. And it won't look exactly the same if you don't have these extensions. This open an application one is very useful. The FileMaker, or the repository that we start a widget from, comes with a FileMaker file, and we can right-click on it and open it up in that browser, in that application, and it's ready to go. So this is what we're going to build, or we're going to look at in a few minutes. VS Code is very important to use. I would recommend you all download that. All right. We also have for the setting up of efficiency, we need to have a GitHub account. GitHub is the place that we can store our code, and we can clone it. We can download it from other machines, for other machines. So it's always good to have GitHub. a GitHub account. And then we need to install some versions on our machine. We need to install some apps on our machine. We need to install Node.js, and we need to install Git. So I want to make sure if you don't want to do it now, you can make sure that you do this later. We're going to try this. We're going to try to download a widget that I have for us and see if it works for us. So these are the latest versions, or these are the links to the Node system and the Git. You would go here and just let it install itself, and then it runs in the background. This is not something that we have to actively use, like deliberately use. The development environment that I have is set up to use this Node.js service on our machines just under the hood. So it takes a lot of the guessing, it takes a lot of the head scratching about how am I going to make this work. Node.js is the one that will, in my development, in my repository here, I can go down here into the terminal and I can write npm start, so Node Package Manager start, and it will start up a development server that then the FileMaker web viewer is listening to. So the connection here is running, or the repository is running thanks to Node.js and some other services and apps. It's there, the web viewer gets that localhost URL and now is listening. So if I make any changes over here, if I make a change in my index.html, for example, and add a, let's go, nope, not that one. Let's go to this one here, and I add a heading tag called charts, then immediately that will show up over here, and now it's part of what I'm doing. So this is how I can write efficiently. I can have Node.js be handling this server, localhost server, and then it works. I could click on this and open it up into a browser, but because this is using FileMaker data, nothing's going to work. It's not going to work. We don't have a connection here between the browser and FileMaker data. I think there are ways to handle that, but I like developing only in the web viewer because that's where this thing is going to reside. And so I want to make sure that it's working 100% in FileMaker. All right, so Node.js is very important. You can check your version of Node.js by opening up the terminal, and let's make this big, and typing, let's see, node-v, and that will tell you your version. If you don't have it installed, obviously it's not going to tell you anything. So we need to make sure that you have Node.js. We also need to make sure you have Git installed on your machine. I don't think I have the latest versions. I know I don't have the latest versions. That's okay. It's still my stuff still runs without the latest versions. So these are the only two items that you really need on your machines when you are doing this work. Where did it go? Okay, so it's right here. Install Node.js and install Git. Git takes a little. Oh yeah, I am behind the scene. Git takes a little bit of time to install because you actually have to, if you're on a Mac, you have to install Homebrew. I don't understand any of that. I know people here at Harmonic do. I wish I understood it more. Well, you have to install Homebrew first if you're on the Mac, and then you have to let it install Git. So Git is a service that will let you connect to your GitHub repository so that you can take all of the changes that you have made in your VS Code app and see all the changes and then commit them, added to index. Just commit them and keep track of all of the changes that you have made in this file. That's really useful. If you run into a place where there's a big bug, you can go back and revert. This is great for versioning control and so forth. So Git is very important, and I believe we're going to need it to download this repository that I have for you. All right. So just want to make sure. This is sort of a hands-on. Maybe I forgot to say that at the beginning. It's kind of a hands-on. So if you're online, if you're in virtual, you can do this on your machines, and we can do it here together. I assume all of you have Git and Node. You're ready to go with this. All right, good. Let's see, what else do we need to do? It's pretty simple. I think we're kind of, yeah, that's actually it. So these are the only thing that we need to set up on our machine. And it's the only thing that we need to do from now on. We don't have to worry about working with these or installing anything more. There are times, I think, when we need to install, update the version of Node.js or Git. Doesn't happen that often. And if it does, I usually see that and I will post a notice on the JSNFM community. Hey guys, hey everyone, we need to update our Node.js version in order for this to work. All right. So with these pieces in mind, I am able now to grab any widget, grab any library, and start to work with it. And I would love for you to do this with me here virtually or with me right now. We're going to download this widget from my repository, and we're going to just see how it works inside of FileMaker. All right, you ready to do this? Let's do it. So we're going to need our terminal. Our terminal is right here. Don't need that. Our terminal is the command line is a great place to work with. What's it called on Windows? It's the command prompt, right? Or is it I don't know, I see, the what? Yeah, CMD, yeah, okay. Yeah, command prompt, yeah. So whatever you're using for command lines, we are going to create a widget. Since I do this every day, I build this for clients, I've created a quick command to help me do this. So here it is. The first thing I need to do is I need to change directory into a place where I want this widget to go. This process will take everything that I have put together up in VS Code, up in GitHub, and it will bring it down onto your machine into a folder. Right now, without changing directory, I think I'm just at the very top of my MacBook Pro, and I don't want it to be there. So I usually just do a change directory into a folder that I have set up for all this. I've got one called JS Work where I stuff all my repositories. All my repositories are in here. These are test ones and ones that I do for the community. I've got client ones in different client folders and such. So I've got a lot of them in here, and we'll take a look at some of them. So if you want to change directory into into a folder, you can also do this. You can change directory or CD and then drag a folder from your Finder into that. So if I go to my documents and let's just put it in a different folder. Let's put it in JSNFM community. I can just drag that and it has the path there, and then I can change directory to that. All right. So I can see here now that I'm in that folder for it. I'm going to go back to the other one because that's just where I put it. Okay. So I'm in that folder. I can see that here. I'm at my MacBook Pro, and then I'm in the JS Work folder. Now I have another command that will help us download this pretty instantaneously. It's basically a little app that I have that will ask you a bunch of questions and then generate all the code for you need to get started. So here's the command. It's npx at integrating-magic create JS in FM widget. I'll leave that up here for a second before I let it run. This is a handy way to create a widget using the starting template without having to start it all from scratch. People in my community, in the JSNFM community, use this every day to create widgets. I use it to practice with some JavaScript. I use it to learn about new JavaScript libraries by installing them and putting them in, and just as a playground. All right, so I'm going to run this. Here's what it will do. It runs through, again, some questions, and it asks me for all this stuff before it sets it up. I'm going to give it a widget name. I'm going to call this Dallas widget. Okay. You can call it anything. In fact, I'm going to call it my first widget. Now, I may have already done that, so I'm going to just type in the word new at the end. This is going to be my first widget. This is going to be one that we start with and we explore all the possibilities of working with JavaScript here. So it asks me for the widget name. It's going to be, do you want to ask or put a description in there? Who is the author if you want? What version it is? What license it is? And then I'm giving you some options here for what kind of widget do you want to build. For this demonstration, we only have three options here. We have a JS development environment, we have an old dev, and we have the My First. If you're with me, follow along. If you're following along, choose the My First one. And that will ask you one last question. What is the name of the target file that you want this widget to be attached to? It's not really important to change it here. Ultimately, we want to get this to a client file, but as we're developing it, as we're working on it, it's nice to have just a separate file that we can work with. So I just always leave this blank or leave this as the defaults. And we have one more question. Do you want to install and initialize this? Yes, we do. All right. So what it has done in our folder that we navigated to, at the very top, depending on how you're sorting it, it has put in that widget there. Oh, I didn't know I could do that. That widget there in that folder. It comes with everything that we need in order for this to work. So you don't have to worry about collecting all this stuff or setting up a FileMaker file. It's all set for you to go. All right. Now it's giving you some final instructions. We can change directory into that first widget, that folder, and then we can open it up in code. I have a little command on my machine that will open it up in VS Code. You may not have that, so you would really just go up to that folder and drag it on top of your VS Code instance, wherever that is, and open it up. Okay. All right. I want to make sure if you're following with me that you've caught up, but this is ready to go. I now can create a widget. Here, this is a template that I've created for us that will build a chart. Normally, you would start with sort of a blank slate, and then you build the widget as you need. You install libraries or whatever the case as you need. All right. So this is set up and ready for me to go. It feels like a lot of steps. We had to do some setup of our machines, but really when it comes down to creating a widget, we just start. We start in VS or in Terminal. We do all those things that we need to do, and then we run through the process, and we're ready to go. We've got it all set up. All right. And again, this is what web developers do every day. If you're building a web app, the company who has the code that you want to use usually has a little app that you can run through a process to download all their code as well. So I thought I would do the same thing. All right, so here in my repository, in VS Code, got everything that I need for this to work. Yes?
Sorry, can you just go back to that, finally catching up with the installs? Can you
Oh, sorry. Yes. So I CD'd into a directory. That's not important. It's npx. So this is the command here. Okay, I'll hold that thought. Be sure you choose the My First widget when it gets to that space, that question. Has anybody played with this before? Has anybody downloaded widget or started a widget with mine either online or here? Taylor, you've done it a few times. Okay. Have you? Yeah, well, you can practice it. That's why that folder is full of widgets, because I keep practicing it and just getting it in my muscle memory. This is probably the longest command that I could create, so I don't know how to make a smaller one.
So, could you give me a real simple example of, if that is insufficient, why are we doing the creation of widgets using this
Sure.
Your application and contributing JS? Maybe a much more basic. What the hell are we using this for?
Well, we're using it to create widgets that can display data, that can allow for interaction that isn't possible with FileMaker itself. FileMaker has a lot of great tools. They have a charting tool, but it hasn't been updated in years. And from what I understand, there's no need to worry about it because we have the web viewer to put a chart in there. There are hundreds of FileMaker developers that are using charts. This setup gives us a lot of great interaction. This is what this is about. So I've got this chart here, and I can choose to change some data in it and have it update. That would be impossible to do, to make it look like that using just the FileMaker chart object. We have a lot of possibilities here that give us all sorts of options. Dennis, who's with us, I know you don't mind. You told me that. For him, I worked on a Kanban board, so I'm going to try to open up that. Yeah.
Everybody else here is a FileMaker developer, so don't sidetrack the whole discussion.
No.
No, it's a big question.
It is. So I'm going to... Yes, the question was, why do we need to do this when FileMaker is supposed to be like the full complete package, right? Why do we need to build widgets using another language? Yeah, I completely understand that. This is the power that it gives. This is the power that it gives. With Dennis and I, we worked on this together. I built him a Kanban board that allows him to, oh no, Dennis, where's all the, oh, come on. Let's try another day. Next week's dates. Okay, thank you. There we go. Thank you, Dennis. So this is one that we worked together on to build. This would be, he wants to do this for got a nice checkbox there, check mark. A nice delivery system for certain orders, and he can just do anything that a Kanban board would do. I built it so it doesn't allow for dropping in other columns, and he's got some possible options here that allows him to change how it looks. So this is what we do to solve client problems that can't be done with FileMaker.
So this would integrate seamlessly with menus and so forth, and then you click here, and suddenly you find yourself in something like this instead?
Yeah.
Or is it really an either-or sort of?
No, this is just a web viewer on a layout. And anything and there's some buttons here, FileMaker buttons, FileMaker scripts that cause this web viewer to fill up with the data and with the look of it and the interaction possibilities.
Collapsible columns, Jeremy.
Yeah. So we've got some nice collapsible columns, especially if we've got extra dates here that requires a lot of columns, we can collapse those down. There's just yeah, click on a pop-up element. That didn't.
Everything below the dark gray bar here then is a web viewer that you're fueling content through.
That is correct. Yeah. Everything below the web viewer, below the gray bar here, is a web viewer. So this layout is primarily. But the cool thing is, and I'll show you in the charting section, the cool thing is we can use FileMaker buttons and FileMaker scripts to cause interactions inside of the web viewer. And vice versa, we can do the other way as well. Let me just pull up whatever it was. This is the web viewer. These are cards. I can click on a card and I can open up a FileMaker card window that then I can manipulate the data with. So there's a great possibility of a connection between the web viewer, what's inside of it, and FileMaker scripts, FileMaker layouts, FileMaker data, FileMaker security, FileMaker everything. Okay?
And the trigger that causes the web viewer content to change then is something else in FileMaker that's
Yep.
not web viewer?
Yeah, I'll show. We'll take a look at that. All right, so let's get back to this widget. This is your very first widget. If you've downloaded this, it comes with everything you need. And really, at the outset, all you need to do is open up the FileMaker file. There's a couple ways to do that. You can click on it and either open an application if you have that, or right-click on it and reveal in Finder and open it up. If you try to open it up directly in here, it's going to say it can't open it up because it's trying to open it up in the code editor. So this is pretty much set up for us to use right away. And I want to just look at this and feel free to play around with it as I talk. When you first open it up, I forgot to change this, it's in dev mode. Dev mode means if I try to load the widget, I'm going to get a blank screen because it's listening for that local host over here in VS Code. I don't need to worry about that right now. I can just turn this off and I'm going to play with this. So all of this was constructed using data inside of this app. There's 7,000 records. I'm only returning 12 of them to display across the chart as a simple process, as a simple example. This process in my scripting, I'll try to zoom in here. I have a load widget script that will go and it does all the work to find the code that I need to use to get it ready for the chart for the web viewer. It goes and gets the data here on line 24, and then it shoves it all into the web viewer using this line 36, perform JavaScript in a web viewer. In this line here, I'm sending a JSON object which contains the type here on line 27, the series of data that I want, like which field am I going to display on the chart, and of course the data. All of these elements of this JSON object are either gathered in subscripts or just right along here. They're gathered as a setting into variables, and then it's all stuffed into the web viewer. In the Kanban boards case that I showed, we've got a separate subscript that brings in a bunch of configuration options. So if Dennis wants to show the collapsible lanes, that's a checkbox, and we just package all that up as what I call configuration options, and it gets sent into the web viewer. So all of this gets sent in via this step right here, and then it renders the chart as we want. So if I change this to product 22 for the year 2019, it's going to fetch the data and then load that in there. All right. The initial load here, this button at the top, load widget, is one that refreshes the web viewer. You can see that it wipes it out and it just allows it to load initially. The way that I'm choosing to do this is this script goes and fetches the HTML, like I mentioned, and it stuffs it into the web viewer on about line 30, 31. This is how I choose to do it. There are other ways to do this. The web viewer is a calculation engine, so it could handle a calculation, but I'm asking this script to go get all the data, go get all the configuration, and then load the web viewer with the HTML. And then the last part is on line 36, cause a function to run with all of my options that I've selected. So as this script runs, we'll just debug it here. It's kind of hard to debug and keep zoomed in. It's going to fetch the data right here. It looks for that widget name. It finds it. It puts it into an HTML variable, and then it grabs some chart information, like I said, the configuration options. It goes and gets the data in a subscript right here using the execute data API script step that came about in FileMaker 19, and then it returns it to the main script. Now, I'm going to try to do this. This is tough, but here's my JSON object. Let's do a JSON format elements here. Do I have that? No. JSON format elements, JSON. Here's everything that I'm sending in. I'm sending in some data. I should be sending in 12 records that came from that table. I'm sending in the series type. Which of these fields do I want to display? And I'm sending in the chart type. All of this gets sent in, and then the JavaScript processes it and sticks all the data and the chart type and the series type where it needs to go, and then it renders the chart. Voila.
Now, to be clear, you're setting the web viewer with the HTML document first, and then you're injecting data into it.
Yes, I am doing that because the HTML, I'll repeat the question. To be clear, the JavaScript or that load widget FileMaker script is setting the HTML inside of the web viewer first, right here on line 31. And then once it has been set and it has paused for a half a second, we'll talk about that pause in a minute, the perform JavaScript in a web viewer script triggers a function to run in the variable function, which happens to be, load widget. This function takes in, it gets triggered to run by this FileMaker script step, and it passes the JSON into it. That's what, and I'll show you what that looks like right here. So I have a function somewhere in here called load widget. This load widget brings in the JSON as a parameter. It parses it. It gets it ready for it gets it ready to be used inside of the JavaScript. When FileMaker creates a JSON object, it's really just creating a string. I don't know about that. I don't know if that's exactly true, because an API can read our JSON, FileMaker's JSON, just fine, but JavaScript can't. So we have to parse it and get it ready for FileMaker. That's just what I call it, or get it ready for the JavaScript. That's just what I call it. In this line, I'm extracting out all the different variables, all of the different properties, and then I'm using those down below in various places. Like here, one of the options of this library is the data.json, and the data that I brought in from FileMaker gets placed into here. The type gets placed into here. I've got some hard-coded stuff in here, and away we go. So this function causes the entire chart to render. All right. That's how I'm choosing to do it. There are other ways, but this is the way that I like to do. I like to let a FileMaker script control when that chart gets rendered. Doesn't have to be that way, but it's a good start. It's a good start. So that's the initial load. Any other thoughts or questions on that? No? Okay. Now, because we've had FileMaker 19 and above, we've had the ability to allow FileMaker up at the top here in these blue buttons here and these various dropdowns to cause the JavaScript to change without any tricks, without any loops or workarounds or anything else. I can take this button and change the chart type from a bar to a line. And I can do that, if you've noticed, without wiping out the web viewer and starting all over. I think that is pretty dang powerful, because we can give our users some great interaction without resetting everything. Yes?
So would you be able to set it where when the values in that drop-down change, it refreshes the web viewer without having to...
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was asking, would you be able to set it so that when the values in that drop-down change, it updates the web viewer without having to press that update button?
Yes, yes. Because we are FileMaker developers, we can go to this field or this drop-down. We can add a script trigger on object, modify. I want to find in my methods folder, I want to transform chart. Let's go back out. And there we go. So we got to load it first. And then we do this, boom. Yep, just like that. That doesn't really make sense, but that's what it is. It works. So yeah, so we FileMaker developers can provide some great interaction by giving our users that kind of feature. Yeah. So this is what I find is the most powerful, is to be able to use FileMaker buttons, FileMaker scripts to make changes inside of the web viewer without having to refresh it. Before we had this possibility, here's what we did. We would go, okay, I want a line chart. Now I have to reload it and get a line chart. So I wiped out everything that I had. I wiped out any filtering that I might have had or any interaction that I had, and I reset it from beginning with this new configuration. Don't have to do that now. I can just let it run on its own. This all happens, let's look at that script, the transform chart script. This all happens because just of a few script steps. In this script, I have the name of the web viewer in a variable. I have the function name that I want to call. I'm getting the chart type out of that field. I'm putting it into some JSON here, and then I'm using that perform JavaScript in a web viewer, not in a web viewer. In web viewer, I'm triggering the web viewer that I want to trigger. I'm calling the function, and I'm passing in that JSON. That all works. And that makes this happen right here, transform chart, this function right here. This function is called transform chart. And over there on the right, it accepts some JSON. I parse it out and get it ready. And then this line right here, line 20, is it? It's hard to see. Oh, line 60. This takes the type that came in from FileMaker and it taps into the charts API and causes a change. This charting library that I have installed has a function called transform, and I can pass in any of the chart types that it supports, and it will update that chart in front of my eyes. So this is how I write functions that allow FileMaker interaction right here. And this is the great power. We can expose functions that will make changes to the web viewer's rendering possibilities. So to continue to answer the question, why would we use widgets on this to solve client problems? We can't make changes we can kind of make changes in a chart object. We can kind of make changes by passing new data in, but it's a lot smoother, it's a lot nicer looking, it's a lot more interactive when we use a widget that has an API to transform the chart. All right? So this is how we FileMaker developers can tap into the entire platform by using that little object that's clear at the top there. Very little unassuming object, web viewer tool. It says display web page on the layout. I've never displayed a web page on the layout. I have never used it for that. I've only used, remember when they had the MapQuest stuff in here? They might still do. Yeah, they still do. I haven't used this in years. Yeah, they really should just, I don't know, maybe people use it. It certainly is a starting point, right? But now that we have FileMaker 19, we can start by building these kinds of widgets for clients right away. We don't have to go through the pain of using the rest of that stuff. We don't have to display a web page of a chart. We can actually use FileMaker data. We can use configurations, use scripts, use all of the tools that we have as FileMaker developers to make this happen. I really haven't spent much time in here, and that's not the point of this. The point is to just show you how this all works in together. Now, I'll finish off with one thing. And again, you're just playing with it. You're probably getting lost. That's okay. Feel free to you can always reach out to me in the community or via email or Slack, and I can help you understand this more. My JS and FM course does walk you through this very library and tells you all about it. But this is how I build every widget. I create a function that is called by FileMaker. It contains some chart options. This has a bunch of, well, first of all, it contains a chart library called C3. That library contains a function called generate, and that function asks for a bunch of features or a bunch of options that are in an object here. And those all work together to generate the chart that we need. As a FileMaker developer, I'm going to come in here and I want to make some changes. So you can see the default color here I have set to be red. I'm going to just change that to be blue. All right, so it's default color as blue. If I run this in not dev mode, it's going to pull from this HTML table. That HTML here has the word red in it for that series of data. I could try to come in here and try to find the word red, but it's going to be a little tough. So the beauty of working with JavaScript efficiently in this manner is to turn this on dev mode, come into the VS Code, and open up the, oops, I don't want to do that. Open up the terminal, npm start to get the development server to run. Then I load this, and now it has that blue color that I wanted. They don't really want blue. Let's try cyan, see if that's a web color. I can use any sort, yep, there we go. Let's just pick that. So my client says, I don't like the red, it's too bloody, so they want this color instead. My stored version has that red in it. with this environment, I can easily go to the terminal again and do npm run deploy. Here, I'll zoom in here. Deploy to FM. This command will bundle up all my code. It will put it in here into my widget. Actually, what it did is it replaced, or it created a new one. I'm going to update that one. Give me 1 second. There we go. So let me redeploy that. All right, so it's been updated. So now when I load this, it contains the update that I made over here in VS Code. So the deployment of this, the be able to version this and change things very quickly. And now every client who uses FileMaker who has access to this layout can see the changes that I made. So this is just the beginning. I really would encourage everyone here to explore working with building widgets in FileMaker using an efficient method. I know there's a lot of people out there with thoughts about this. For me, I have found that this is the most efficient method, and people in the JS and FM community are agreeing with that. Please join the JS and FM community. It's community.jsandfm.com. It's all about helping other people work with JavaScript. We have office hours every week from 10 to 11:30 Eastern time. And it's just a group of great people coming together to share what they've learned, to ask questions. And it's just a lot of fun. So my suggestion, I would love to see you all in there and be a part of this, to ask questions and get your journey going. Does anybody have any other thoughts or questions? Steve? Steve, did you get it all set up?
Yes, but I didn't get the.
Yeah.
Did I miss when you skipped to the charting piece?
Did you open up the charts? Did you download the My First Widget parts?
I don't think so.
Okay. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I went more fast than I should have. This was that npx command. Did you do that npx command?
Right. The one I downloaded was create JS and FM widget.
Yep. So when you do that npx command, you have the option to choose what version, and My First is the one that you would want to choose to get this chart.
Got it.
Okay.
So My First widget.
Yeah. So
Okay. Got it.
something happened? Okay. Okay. So yeah, the JS type here, this is just my blank one. This is my blank version that comes with nothing in it except for all of these. It comes with the basics, ASDFD, code, period. When you go to create a widget, you use that JS library, that JS one, and it will just give you a blank one here with everything you need to start. It gives you a blank index.js file. It's got a few things in it, and it gives you a FileMaker file that's all set up and ready for you to go. If I start up this one right here, npm start, then this one over here is ready to go, kind of as a template to get started. So now you just do what you need to do to write your JavaScript, and that's for another time. But I use this every day to create widgets for people starting from scratch. I do have a React version of this for people who are interested in React. You can build a React app inside of FileMaker, just as if you were doing regular JavaScript. So it's ready for us as well. But yeah. Which one is this? This is just the basic starter kit that I provide. When you do the npx command, here, it asks you what type. The first one there is the one that is just a blank slate, ready for you to start doing some development. Okay? All right. Please reach out if you have any thoughts or questions about this, about using JavaScript. I encourage you to ask the community. The community is full of great people that are just like us, regular FileMaker developers that are trying to learn this stuff, and they're great. There's great support in there in the community. All right. Thank you all. Oof.